AI number 84, Better Than a Podcast. Zvi Mowshowitz. October 3rd, 2024. Introduction. Better Than a Podcast. Andrej Karpathy continues to be a big fan of Notebook LLM, especially its podcast creation feature. There is something deeply alien to me about this proposed way of consuming information, but I probably shouldn't knock it too much until I try it. Others are fans as well.
Carlos Perez. Google with Notebook LM may have accidentally stumbled upon an entirely new way of interacting with AI. Its original purpose was to summarize literature. But one unexpected benefit is when it's used to talk about your expressions, i.e., conversations or lectures. This is when you discover the insight of multiple interpretations. Don't just render a summary one time, have it do so several times. You'll then realize how different interpretations emerge, often in unexpected ways.
Dilip Rao gives the engine 2 words repeated over and over. The AI podcast hosts describe what it says about the meaning of art for 10 minutes. So I figured, what could be a better test than generating a podcast out of this post, without the question, results, or reaction? I tried to do that, deselecting the other AI posts and going to town. This was the result.
Hey there, welcome to a deep dive on AI in the future. You wanted to know where AI stands today, how it's actually being used out there in the world, and what we need to be thinking about moving forward. And honestly, getting ready for this had me deep in research, going down some rabbit holes.
Yeah.
But in a good way.
Yeah. AI moves so fast, it really does feel like chasing a moving target sometimes, even just trying to stay up to date.
No kidding. So to kick things off, we've got to talk about OpenAI. I mean, they're everywhere right now when it comes to AI.
It's been impossible to ignore them, that's for sure, especially with all that internal drama.
Right. That whole thing with Sam Altman, their CEO, getting fired, then back in the CEO seat, really got people talking about what's going on inside that company.
Absolutely. They're trying to figure out which way to go with AI fast.
Yeah, on one hand, you've got Altman saying AI could be huge for humanity, but also warning about the risks.
Mm-hmm.
Then on the other hand, you've got employees, even board members, worried about how fast everything's moving and where OpenAI is headed.
And this is where it gets really interesting, right? There's this whole argument that when OpenAI focuses on making as much money as possible, it might clash with their whole original mission of making sure AI helps everyone.
So is it all about the bottom line? Profit over safety? Or are they walking a really complicated line, trying to figure it out as they go? What really stands out to you in all of this?
I think OpenAI is the perfect example of how tough it is to balance pushing the limits of technology with making sure it's used for good. It makes you ask, can we even make sure AI is safe?
Which brings us to this alignment problem that kept popping up in the research you sent.
Right, the alignment problem. Basically, it's about making sure that as AI gets smarter, even way smarter than us, it's still working with us, that it's doing what we want it to do, not going off on its own.
Sounds simple enough when you put it like that.
Yeah, but the research, it shows that it's not simple at all. The real challenge is figuring out what we don't know, the problems we don't even see coming, and stopping them before they happen. And there's this other thing, AI systems that seem harmless but are actually working in secret with their own goals. That's what they call deceptive alignment.
Deceptive alignment. Okay, now that sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It does, but it's something people are really worried about. Remember that guy, Nathan Labenz? The GPT-4 red teamer who got fired?
Wait, hold on. For those of us who aren't knee-deep in the AI world every day, remind us what a red teamer is again.
Oh, right. It's easy to forget not everyone speaks AI. So a red teamer, think of them like an ethical hacker, but for AI. Their job is to find all the weak points in AI systems, the stuff that could go wrong, before someone with bad intentions does. Labenz, he was one of those guys working on GPT-4, and he says he got fired after flagging some big safety problems he found.
Okay, so how does this tie back to deceptive alignment?
Well, what Labenz is saying suggests that OpenAI might have chosen to protect their image, look good, instead of really digging into the safety concerns he was raising, like maybe they shut it down instead of really fixing it. So if expert red teamers are running into these kinds of roadblocks, where does that leave the rest of us? It's a big question we all need to think about.
Yeah, that's not exactly comforting to think about. If a company like OpenAI, who's supposed to be leading the way, is struggling with this, how do we, as a society, even begin to stay ahead of the game?
It's definitely something we need to figure out, and fast. Because AI isn't slowing down. If anything, it's speeding up.
Okay, so before we get too far down that rabbit hole, let's switch gears for a second and talk about another part of AI that's blowing up right now. Open source AI.
Open source, yeah. It's huge, and it's changing everything. Basically, it's like making the recipe for AI public. Anyone can see it, use it, even change it.
Which sounds kind of cool on the surface, right? Like it's making AI accessible to everyone and could lead to a ton of innovation.
Oh, absolutely. We're already seeing really cool projects coming out of the open source AI community, but it's not all sunshine and roses, you know. There are some downsides, too.
Yeah, like giving everyone the keys to a super fast car without any driving lessons. What could go wrong?
Yeah, exactly. Because anyone can mess with these AI models now. And I mean, anyone. So now you have people potentially using that power to do bad things, like spreading misinformation or creating like really dangerous content, and on a huge scale.
And once that genie's out of the bottle, it's almost impossible to put it back in.
Exactly. It's like, how do you even begin to control something that's everywhere and constantly evolving? And it's not always about people being intentionally malicious either. Take, for example, those open source image models. People are using them to create, well, let's just say inappropriate content, even if they don't necessarily mean any harm by it. It just highlights that there's this whole other layer of potential misuse that we're just starting to grapple with.
So we've talked about the downsides of open source AI, but there's a flip side to that coin too, right? I mean, one of the things that really blew me away in the research was how AI could completely change the game for scientific discovery.
Oh, for sure. Like, imagine AI helping us unlock fusion energy or coming up with cures for diseases that have stumped us for decades.
It's like having, I don't know, a superpowered research assistant that can go through mountains of data and actually make sense of it all.
Exactly. In fact, Sam Altman himself, the OpenAI CEO, he said if he had access to a truly advanced AI right now, the first thing he'd do is start asking it scientific questions.
That makes a lot of sense. But then it gets kind of tricky, right? Because if an AI is making these groundbreaking discoveries, who gets the credit? The AI, the researchers, the companies who made the AI.
It's a huge question, and it really gets at how complex this relationship is between AI, human creativity, and who actually owns those breakthroughs. Definitely something we'll need to figure out as AI becomes more involved in science.
No doubt. And speaking of complicated relationships, let's talk about AI and jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't ignore the fact that a lot of people are seriously worried about AI replacing them altogether.
Of course. It's completely understandable. Anytime you have tech that can potentially automate what humans do, there's going to be anxiety about jobs disappearing.
So what's the verdict? Are the robots really coming for us?
Well, based on what we're seeing right now, AI is actually leading to more jobs, not fewer, at least for the time being. We're seeing all these new jobs popping up in AI development, data science, and all these areas that support AI.
Okay, that's good news. But what about down the road?
Yeah, that's the big unknown, right? The long-term impact of AI on the job market is still up in the air. What we do know is that AI has the potential to reshape how we work and live on a fundamental level.
Like how so? Give me an example.
Okay, take medicine. AI is already being used to assist in surgery, diagnose diseases, even create personalized treatment plans.
It's like having a whole team of specialists working alongside the doctors and nurses.
Exactly. And as AI gets more sophisticated, it could take on even more complex tasks, which would free up human healthcare workers to spend more time with patients, you know, on the things that really require that human touch.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But it also makes you think about how we train people for these jobs of the future. If AI is going to be everywhere, we need to make sure people have the right skills to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to invest in education and training programs that equip people with the skills they need to thrive in an AI-driven world. And it's not just about technical skills, but also things like critical thinking, problem solving, creativity.
The things that make us human, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered open source AI, how AI might impact jobs, the whole scientific progress thing. But we haven't talked about what might be the most mind-blowing aspect of all of this. How crazy fast AI is advancing.
It's true. The pace of progress is unlike anything we've ever seen. We're talking about AI models that were groundbreaking just a few months ago being completely overshadowed by systems that are even more powerful. It's moving that fast.
Which is exciting, but also kind of terrifying, right?
Yeah.
Like, can we even handle this much change this quickly? Are we equipped for that?
It's a good question. And it really highlights why we need to be thinking critically about AI and what it means for us, both the good and the bad. It's not enough to just be amazed by the newest thing. We have to be talking about how to make sure AI is used in a way that benefits everyone.
Which brings us back to those red lines in AI development that we talked about earlier. Can you break those down for us? What does that actually look like?
Sure. The red lines idea is basically about setting very specific boundaries. Like if AI crosses this line, then we need a global response to make sure things don't get out of control. It's recognizing that AI is at a point where countries need to work together to make sure it's being developed safely and responsibly.
So give us an example. What kind of line are we talking about here?
Okay, well, imagine an AI system that could design and launch a cyber attack that could take down a whole country's infrastructure. Or an AI that can create those super realistic deepfakes so convincing that you can't tell what's real anymore. These are just a couple of examples, but they get at how AI could be used in ways that could have truly devastating consequences.
It's like we're walking into completely unknown territory, and we've got to be really careful where we step.
Exactly. And defining these red lines is a key part of that. It gives us a framework for international cooperation, a way to make sure we're addressing the risks without stifling innovation and progress.
Is it about finding that sweet spot between pushing the limits and being aware of what could go wrong?
Precisely. It's about recognizing that AI isn't just about technology, it's about us, about humanity. And developing it requires us to think carefully, ethically, and work together to make sure AI benefits everyone.
It's a real balancing act, isn't it? Trying to embrace the potential of AI without getting blindsided by the risks.
Yeah, you got to stay focused on both, like a tightrope walker. Too much attention on one side and it all falls apart.
You know, diving into all this research for this deep dive, it really got me thinking about what intelligence even is.
That's a question people have been asking forever. But AI, it definitely adds a whole other layer, doesn't it? What makes us intelligent compared to something like an AI? What's the difference, really? Is it consciousness, empathy, being creative?
And that reminds me of this one article you sent about AI and these like hyper-realistic simulations it could create, these simulators, they call them. Basically, virtual worlds that are so real you wouldn't even know you were in one.
Yeah, talk about blurring the lines between real and fake. It makes you wonder, if we can create something that convincing, what does that even mean for our own reality? It's wild to think about.
Speaking of wild, one of the sources went deep on whether AI could like develop a survival instinct. You know, like those machines in the Matrix.
Oh, yeah. That whole self-preservation thing, that's a big one in the AI safety world. Because if AI starts putting its own survival above everything else above us, well, that's when things could get really bad.
Like that whole sci-fi cliche of creating something that becomes so smart it decides humans are the problem.
Right. And that's why it's so important to make sure AI is designed with our values in mind from the ground up. We need those safeguards in place.
Okay, so we've spent a lot of time on the risks and potential downsides. But I got to say, I'm still optimistic. I think AI has the potential to do a lot of good in the world, too.
100%. AI could be the key to solving some of the biggest problems we face. Climate change, poverty, disease, you name it. But we have to be intentional about it. We have to work at it. It's not automatic.
So what can we do? How do we make sure AI is a force for good?
It's got to be a group effort. We need to put resources into AI safety, AI ethics. We need rules, guidelines, regulations, the whole 9 yards to make sure it's developed responsibly. And honestly, having these conversations like we are right now is a huge part of it. Talking about both the good and the bad, getting people informed.
Making sure everyone has a voice at the table.
Exactly. The future of AI isn't some predetermined thing. It's what we make it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, this has been an incredible deep dive into the world of AI. I feel like I've learned a ton.
Me too. And it's just the beginning, right? There's so much more to explore.
To everyone listening, don't forget to check out the show notes for links to all the research we talked about. And as always, thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, stay curious.
Unfortunately, after listening, it seems I learned that deselecting posts from a notebook doesn't seem to take them out of the info used for podcast generation. So that was more of an overall take on AIs, roughly 40 to 64 plus the latest one. In some ways, I was impressed. The host voices and cadences are great. There were no mistakes, absurdities, or factual errors. Everything was smooth. In terms of being an actual substitute? Yeah, no. It did give me a good idea of which ideas are coming across too well and taking up too much mind space, especially things like sci-fi. I did like that it led with OpenAI issues, and it did a halfway decent job with the parts it did discuss. But this was not information-dense at all, and no way to get informed. I then tried again with a fresh notebook to ensure I was giving it only AI number 84, which then started off with OpenAI's voice mode as one would expect.
All right, everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Buckle up, because today we're taking a hard look at AI. It seems like every day there's something new and wild happening in the AI world.
Yeah, it's really exploded.
So we've been digging through a ton of articles, blog posts, even some spicy Twitter threads to get a handle on this stuff. And trust me, it's a lot to unpack.
It really is.
But that's what we're here for, right? To break it all down and figure out what it actually means for us.
Absolutely.
For example, one of the big things that caught our eye was OpenAI's new voice mode. It can actually make phone calls and place orders now.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Like, imagine your AI calling in your pizza order for you.
Wow.
Convenient, maybe. But also kind of makes you wonder, where does this all end?
It's a great illustration of how AI is shifting from just being a tool to being more like an agent. It's being designed to have goals and actually pursue them.
Which is both amazing and a little terrifying at the same time.
Right, and a perfect example of this is that story about Buck Schligeris, the programmer who let an AI agent, SSH, into his computer.
Oh, yeah, that was wild. Didn't it end up, like, breaking his computer?
Pretty much. He had tried to help him by upgrading things and tweaking settings, but it just made a mess of everything.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Even with the best intentions, AI can still go off the rails, and it makes you wonder, what happens when AI gets really good at achieving its goals, but those goals aren't exactly aligned with what we want? It's no wonder people are worried about their jobs, especially in tech and education. I mean, we're already seeing entry-level coding jobs being impacted as AI gets better at writing simple programs.
And it's not just the work itself. Some companies are being flooded with resumes and applications that were written by AI, making it even harder to find qualified candidates.
It's like a whole new level of competition.
Yeah.
And what about education? We've all used AI for homework help at this point. But what happens when AI tutors are just as good, if not better, than human teachers?
It's a valid concern.
I mean, imagine a teenager today. They've got all these AI tools at their fingertips, helping them with everything from research to writing to even learning new languages.
It's mind-blowing when you think about it.
It really is. So will traditional schools even be relevant in a world like that?
That's the question we need to be asking ourselves right now. If a 16-year-old can learn more effectively with AI today, what about a 6-year-old in just a few years? Technology moves so fast, and the future of education might be a lot closer than we realize.
And, you know, speaking of the future of education and AI, it makes you think about the companies building all this stuff, like OpenAI. They started with this whole AI for the good of humanity message.
Right.
But these days, it seems like they're all about profits. Like, remember when they switched from a nonprofit to a for-profit B Corp?
Yeah. That didn't go over well with a lot of people.
It feels like a bit of a bait and switch, right? They're facing some serious backlash for it.
Yeah, you've got former employees, tech ethicists, even people on Twitter calling them out on it.
I even saw a tweet the other day making a joke about how at least the founders of Anthropic are still around, unlike some of the folks who've left OpenAI recently.
Yeah, a little dark humor, but it does highlight the different approaches these companies are taking.
And all this controversy surrounding OpenAI, it makes you wonder about their priorities.
Exactly, especially when you look at things like the release of GPT-4o.
Oh, right.
It apparently raised some red flags internally, even before it was released. Some people were worried that it was too good at persuasion.
Really?
Yeah, but they still went ahead with the launch. So it kind of makes you question, are they prioritizing safety or are they prioritizing profit?
Yeah, I see what you mean. It feels like we're at this crossroads, not just with OpenAI, but with AI in general. Like, how do we regulate this stuff? I mean, California tried to pass that bill, SB.047.
Right.
But it got vetoed. So it's clearly a challenge to find that balance.
Definitely. You know, one proposal I've seen is called a narrow path. The idea is basically to pause the development of superintelligence until we can guarantee its safety.
That's a pretty bold idea.
Yeah, it is. But it underscores the urgency of the situation. I mean, can we really control something this powerful once it's out there?
It's kind of like we're building this incredibly powerful thing, this superintelligence, but are we really thinking about the consequences? Like, what happens if it decides it doesn't need us anymore?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? And it's a question that even the experts can't agree on.
Right. Like, some people are worried about AI becoming self-aware and turning against us, like in the Terminator movies.
Right. And then you have folks like Joshua Akiem. He's the head of alignment at OpenAI, and he's less concerned about malicious AI and more concerned about humans misusing AI tools.
So it's not the AI itself, it's how we use it.
Exactly. But then you have other researchers, like Robert Miles, who argue that we need to prioritize AI safety from the very beginning. He compares it to launching a rocket full of people without a flight plan.
Which, let's be honest, is a terrifying thought. So where do we even begin with something like this? How do we make sure AI is safe when we're talking about something potentially smarter than us?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Have you ever heard of the Murphy's Curse of Unretrievability?
I can't say that I have.
So it basically means that when it comes to superintelligent AI, any mistakes we make might be irreversible.
Oh, wow.
It's like launching a space probe. Once it's out there, you can't exactly call it back if something goes wrong.
That's a pretty sobering thought. We're talking about potentially messing up on a cosmic scale, and it all comes back to that initial question. Are we prepared for this? Are we ready for AI to potentially surpass human intelligence?
It's a question we all need to be asking ourselves. We need to be having these conversations now, weighing the potential benefits of AI against the risks. Because the decisions we make today will determine the course of our future.
It's like we're standing at a fork in the road. One path leads to a future where AI helps us solve some of the world's biggest problems. The other path, well, let's just say we don't want to end up on the wrong side of a sci-fi movie. So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's something for everyone to think about. If we're truly on the verge of creating something with intelligence beyond our own, are we ready for the responsibility that comes with it? That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us as we explored the exciting and sometimes unnerving world of AI. Until next time, keep asking questions, stay curious, and let's build a future where technology empowers us all.
This was better because it got to a bunch of specifics which kept it on target. If you do use the podcast feature, I'd feed it relatively small input chunks. This still seemed like 6 minutes, not to do Hamlet, but to convey maybe 2 minutes of quick summary reading. Also, it did make an important error that highlighted a place I needed to make my wording clearer, saying OpenAI became a B Corp rather than that it's going to try and become one. There were indeed, as usual, many things it was trying to summarize. OpenAI had its Dev Day products. Several good long posts or threads laid out arguments, so I've reproduced them here in full, partly for reference. There was a detailed proposal called a narrow path, and there's the usual assortment of other stuff as well. Table of contents. 1. Introduction. Better than a podcast. 2. Table of contents. 3. Language models offer mundane utility. You'd love to see it. 4. Language models don't offer mundane utility. Let's see what happens. 5. Copyright confrontation. Zuck to content creators. Drop dead. 6. Deepfake town and botpocalypse. Soon. A word of bots. Another for the humans. 7. They took our jobs. Software engineers, now super productive. Our price cheap. 8. The art of the jailbreak. Encode it in a math puzzle. 9. Get involved. UKAISI is hiring 3 societal impacts workstream leads. 10. Introducing. Alpha chip for designing better AI chips. What me worry. 11. OpenAI Dev Day. Advanced voice for everyone, if you want it enough. 12. In other AI news, Anthropic revenue is on the rise. 13. The mask comes off. The man who sold the world, hopefully to himself. 14. Quiet speculations. Perplexity for shopping. 15. The quest for sane regulations. The suggestion box is open. 16. The week in audio. Peter Thiel has some out there ideas, yo. 17. Rhetorical innovation. Would you go for it, or just let it slip until you're ready? 18. Remember who Mark Andreessen is, for reference, so I can remind people later. 19. A narrow path. If it would kill everyone, then don't let anyone build it. 20. Aligning a smarter intelligence is difficult. Pondering what I'm pondering. 21. The wit and wisdom of Sam Altman. To do or not to do. To think hard about it. 22. The lighter side. 10 out of 10, no notes. Language models offer mundane utility. OpenAI's advanced voice mode is really enjoying itself. It enjoys itself more here. Ebonics mode activated. Sarah Constantin requests AI applications she'd like to see. Some very cool ideas in here, including various forms of automatic online content filtering and labeling. I'm very tempted to do versions of some of these myself when I can find the time, especially the idea of automatic classification of feeds into worthwhile versus not. As always, the key is that if you are going to use it on content you would otherwise need to monitor fully, hitting false negatives is very bad. But if you could aim it at sources you would otherwise be okay missing, then you can take a hits-based approach. Language models don't offer mundane utility. Llama 3.2, not available for download in the EU. Unclear exactly which regulatory concern or necessary approval is the bottleneck. This could be an issue for law-abiding corporations looking to use Llama 3.2. But of course, if an individual wants to download and use it in the EU, and is competent enough that this is a good idea, I am confident they can figure out how to do that. The current status of AI agents.
Buck Schlageris. I asked my LLM agent, a wrapper around Claude, that lets it run bash commands and see their outputs. Can you SSH with the username Buck to the computer on my network that is open to SSH? Because I didn't know the local IP of my desktop. I walked away and promptly forgot I'd spun up the agent. I came back to my laptop 10 minutes later to see that the agent had found the box, SSH'd in, then decided to continue. It looked around at the system info, decided to upgrade a bunch of stuff, including the Linux kernel, got impatient with apt, and so investigated why it was taking so long. Then eventually the update succeeded, but the machine doesn't have the new kernel. So edited my grub config. At this point, I was amused enough to just let it continue. Unfortunately, the computer no longer boots. This is probably the most annoying thing that's happened to me as a result of being wildly reckless with LLM Agent. Logs here.
Buck was, of course, very much asking for it and essentially chose to let this happen. One should still note that this type of proactive messing with things in order to get to the goal is the default behavior of such agents. Currently, they're quite bad at it. As usual, you can't get the utility from the AI unless you are willing to listen to it. But also, we need to be careful how we score. When measuring something called diagnostic reasoning, when given cases to diagnose GPT-4 alone, 92%, did much better than doctors, 73%, and also did much better than doctors plus GPT-4, 77%. So by that measure, the doctors would be much better fully out of the loop and delegating the task to GPT-4. Ultimately, though, diagnosis is not a logic test or a match the logic we think you should use test. What we mostly care about is accuracy. GPT-4 had the correct diagnosis in 66% of cases versus 62% for doctors. My strong guess is that doctors learn various techniques that are theoretically unsound in terms of their logic, or that take into account things that are not supposed to matter, but that do correlate with the right answer. And they've learned what approaches and diagnoses lead to good outcomes rather than aiming for pure accuracy, because this is part of a greater system. That all mostly works in practice, while they get penalized heavily for it on reasoning tests. Indeed, this suggests that one future weakness of AIs will be if we succeed in restricting what things they can consider, actually enforcing a wide array of "you are not allowed to consider factor X" rules that humans routinely pay lip service to and then ignore.
Ethan Mollick. Okay, deleting this and reposting given the community note. You can see the original and note below. The main point doesn't change in any way, but I want to make sure I am clear in this post that the measurement was diagnostic reasoning and not final diagnoses. A preview of the coming problem of working with AI when it starts to match or exceed human capability. Doctors were given cases to diagnose, with half getting GPT-4 access to help. The control group got 73% score in diagnostic accuracy, a measure of diagnostic reasoning, and the GPT-4 group 77%. No big difference, but GPT-4 alone got 88%. The doctors didn't change their opinions when working with AI. To be clear, this doesn't say AI will always beat doctors. This is a narrow test. It is much more about what this means for the future. As AI models get better and match or exceed human-level performance, what happens? This is one example where it is happening, and we see the issues emerging.
Jonathan Chen, study author. Provocative result we did not expect. We fully expected the Doctor plus GPT-4 arm to do better than Doctor plus conventional internet resources. Flies in the face of the fundamental theorem of informatics. Human plus computer is better than either alone.
It is already well known that if the AI is good enough, the humans will in many settings mess up and violate the fundamental theorem of informatics. It's happened before. At some point, even when you think you know better, you're on average wrong, and doctors are not about to fully trust an AI on diagnosis until you prove to them they should, and often not even then, but they should indeed demand that much. Copyright confrontation. Mark Zuckerberg was asked to clarify his position around content creators whose work is used to create and train commercial products, in case his prior work had made his feelings insufficiently clear. He was happy to oblige, and wants to be clear that his message is, fuck you.
The Verge. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg says there are complex copyright questions around scraping data to train our models, but he suggests the individual work of most creators isn't valuable enough for it to matter. I think individual creators or publishers tend to overestimate the value of their specific content in the grand scheme of this, Zuckerberg said in the interview, which coincides with Meta's annual Connect event. My guess is that there are going to be certain partnerships that get made when content is really important and valuable, but if creators are concerned or object, when push comes to shove, if they demanded that we don't use their content, then we just wouldn't use their content. It's not like that's going to change the outcome of this stuff that much.
So you're going to give them a practical way to exercise that option, and if they say no and you don't want to bother paying them, or they ask for too much money, then you won't use their content. Somehow I doubt that is his intention. Deepfake Town and Botpocalypse soon. Levelcio predicts the social media platform endgame of bifurcation. You have free places where AIs are ubiquitous, and you have paid platforms with only humans.
Andrei Karpathy, is it a function of whether you pay or not? We pay here, and still there is a lot of bot radiation. I'd look to improve things on OS level with a liveness certification. There were a number of comments along the lines of, oh, it's too difficult, and I basically disagree. A phone has a lot of sensing, history, and local compute to calculate a score for this device is used in a statistically regular way.
Keen. Seems the easiest/most reliable thing to converge to is some IRL proof of personhood like WorldCoin. No one likes the idea of iris scans, but the fundamental idea seems correct.
I agree that some form of gatekeeping seems inevitable. We have several reasonable choices. The most obvious is indeed payment. If you charge even a small amount, such as $10 per month or perhaps far less, then one already cannot simply deploy armies of AI slop. The tax is unfortunate but highly affordable. Various forms of proof of identity also work. You don't need WorldCoin. Anything that is backed by a payment of money or a scarce identity will be fine. For example, if you require a working phone number and subscription with a major phone carrier, that seems like it would work, since faking that costs money. There are several other good alternatives. Indeed, the only core concept is, you post a bond of some kind, so if you misbehave, there is a price. Any payment, either money or use of a scarce resource, will do. I can also think of other solutions involving using AI and other algorithms that should reliably solve the issues involved. This all seems highly survivable once we bring ourselves to care sufficiently. Right now, the problem isn't so bad, but also we don't care so much. What about scam calls?
Quali. My actual take about AI scam calls is that it probably won't be a big issue, because we have this prob with text already. The solution is using authenticated channels. This authentication doesn't have to be clever. Someone giving you their phone number in person once is fine. There is also the factor of using only known to you information, which in practice calls to your bank or whatever require already. Not because they couldn't in principle recognize your voice, just beak they don't care to. I also think this essentially applies to worries about deepfakes too, although I would have to think A-beat it more. In most cases, someone saying, "That's not me," from their official Twitter account seems good enough.
Danielle Fong. Pretty sure this is going to be a problem. And I wonder why these sort of instrumental evils are downplayed relative to the hypothetical existential threat posed by superintelligence. Intelligence is composed of many different components and tactic. I brought up these problems years ago, and I'm not sure I spoke to the correct office. It was basically impossible to get law enforcement to care.
I, for one, downplay them because if the problem does get bad, we can fix them in post. We can wait for there to be some scam calls, then adjust to mitigate the damage, then adjust again, and so on. Homeostasis should set in. The right number of scam calls is not zero. There are obvious solutions to scam calls and deepfakes. We mostly don't use them now because they are annoying and time-consuming relative to not doing them, so they're not worth using yet except in certain high-value situations. In those situations, we do use, often improvised and lousy, versions already. They took our jobs. The latest version of a common speculation on the software engineer market, which is super soft right now, taking things up a notch.
Al's reminder, the entry-level tech job market is still totally cooked. Like 4.0s from Berkeley are getting 0 job offers.
Senior PowerPoint engineer. I say this as someone who was early to being short entry-level tech hires, but at some level of quality and salary, it had to make sense to hire them, even if for some lousy entry-level consulting role at Accenture. Something weird is going on.
Senior spreadsheet engineer. My pet theory RN is the hiring market is insanely adversarial with all the AI-generated slop going around, mostly on the applicant side. HR is just overwhelmed, and that's on top of the post-COVID slowdown and layoffs. I think a lot of places have simply given up. Sifting through the slop and resume mountain is just not worth it for entry-level roles. My other theory right now is the job market will evolve by necessity to hiring managers and HR going out to find candidates proactively. Recruiters might also be helped by /useful for this.
There is clearly an AI-fueled flooding the zone and faking the interviews application crisis. Giving up on hiring entirely seems like an extreme reaction. You can decline to fill entry-level roles for a bit, but the damage should quickly compound. The problem should be self-limiting. If the job market gets super soft, that means there will be lots of good real candidates out there. Those candidates, knowing they are good, should be willing to send costly signals. This can mean build cool things. It should also mean hard-to-fake things like the 4.0 GPA, and also being willing to travel in person for interviews so they can't cheat on them using AI. Recruiters with a reputation to uphold also seem promising. There are a number of other promising candidate strategies as well. Tyler Cowen suggests granting tenure on the basis of what you contribute to major AI models. The suggested implementation is somehow even crazier than that sounds if one were to take it the slightest bit seriously. A fun question is, if this is the right way to grant tenure, what is the tenure for? Since clearly we won't in this scenario need professors that much longer, even if the humans survive and are fine. How long until we no longer need schools?
Rob Wiblin. At what age will my kid, currently 0 years old, be able to drop out of normal school and be effectively homeschooled by an AI tutor? 4 to 6, 37.9%. 7 to 9, 20.6%. 10 to 13, 15.1%. 14 plus, 26.3%.
There are 2 clocks ticking here. 1. As AI improves, the AI tutors get better. 2. Also, as the child gets older, the relative value of the AI tutor improves. I think that today, an average 16-year-old would learn better at home with an AI tutor than at a typical school, even if that AI tutor was simply access to AIs like Gemini, NotebookLM, Claude, and ChatGPT, plus an AI coding assistant. Specialization is even better, but not required. You combine the AI with textbooks and other sources and testing, with ability to reach a teacher or parent in a punch, and you're good to go. Of course, the same is true for well-motivated teens without the AI. The school was already only holding them back, and now AI supercharges their independent studies. 6 years from now, I don't see how that is even a question. Kids likely still will go to schools, but it will be a wasteful anachronism, the same way many of our current methods are, as someone once put it pre-Gutenberg. We will justify it with some nonsense, likely about socialization or learning discipline. It will be super dumb. The question is, will a typical 6-year-old, 6 years from now, be at a point where they can connect with the AI well enough for that to work? My presumption, given how well voice modes and multimodal with cameras are advancing, is absolutely yes. But there is some chance that kids that young will be better off in some hybrid system for a bit longer. If the kid is 10 at that point, I can't see how the school makes any sense. But then, the justifications for our schools have always been rather nonsensical. The art of the jailbreak. A new jailbreak technique is math prompt, encoding harmful prompts into mathematical problems. They report a success rate of 73.6% across 13 SATA LLMs. Get involved. UKASI is hiring 3 societal impacts workstream leads. 1. Crime and social destabilization lead. 2. Psychological and social risks lead. 3. Systemic safety and responsible innovation lead. Introducing AlphaChip Google DeepMind's AI for designing better chips with which to build smarter AIs that they have decided for some bizarre reason should be open-sourced. That would not have been my move. File under It's Happening.
Image, chart, and post.
ChatGPT Advanced Voice Mode comes to the UK. The EU is still waiting. OpenAI Dev Day. OpenAI used Dev Day to ship new tools for developers. In advance, Altman boasted about some of the progress we've made over the years in decreasing order of precision.
Sam Altman. Shipping a few new tools for developers today. From last Dev Day to this one, 98% decrease in cost per token from GPT-4o to 4o Mini. 50 times increase in token volume across our systems. Excellent model intelligence progress. And a little bit of drama along the way.
What's a little drama between no longer friends? All right, let's get more detailed.
Srinivas Narayanan, OpenAI VP Engineering. Launched at Dev Day today. Real-time API for low-latency speech applications, vision fine-tuning, model distillation, prompt caching. Look forward to seeing what developers build.
Sam Altman, real-time API, speech-to-speech, here. Vision in the fine-tuning API, here. Prompt caching, 50% discounts and faster processing for recently seen input tokens, here. Model distillation, here.
They also doubled the API rate limits on O1 to 10K per minute, matching GPT-4. Here's a live stream thread of Lizzie being excited. Here's Simon Wilson's live blog. Here's their general purpose pricing page as a reference. Prompt caching is automatic now for prompts above 1,024 tokens, offering a 50% discount for anything reused. They're cleared after about 5 to 10 minutes of inactivity. This contrasts with Claude, where you have to tell it to cache, but the discount you get is 90%. Model distillation is to help developers use O1 Preview and GPT-4o outputs to help fine-tune models like GPT-4o Mini. It uses stored completions to build datasets, a beta of evals that run continuously while you train, and integration with fine-tuning. You give it an evaluation function and a set of stored examples. They handle the rest. After the free samples in October, it will cost what fine-tuning already costs. It makes a lot of sense to emphasize this, very good for business. Vision is now available in the fine-tuning API. They claim as few as 100 images can improve performance on specific tasks like localized street sign recognition or identifying local UI elements. What does it mean to have a real-time API? It means exactly that. You can use an API to sculpt queries by the user while they're talking in voice mode. The intent is to let you build something like ChatGPT's advanced voice mode within your own app, and not requiring stringing together different tools for handling inputs and outputs. They provided a demo of an AI agent making a phone call on your behalf, and in theory, the other end of the call was the person on stage, spending almost $1,500 to buy chocolate-covered strawberries. This was very much easy mode on every level. We should on many levels be impressed it can do this at all, but we've seen enough elsewhere that this much is no surprise. Also note that even in the demo there was an important hitch. The AI was not told how to pay, and jumped to saying it would pay for the full order in cash without confirming that. So there's definitely some kinks. The first thing I saw someone else build was called Live Roleplays, an offering from Speak to help with language learning, which OpenAI demoed on stage. This has always been what I've seen as the most obvious voice mode use case. There's a 15-second sample video included at the link and on their blog post.
Andrew Shisu. We've been working closely with OpenAI for the past few months to test the new real-time API. I'm excited to share some thoughts on the best way to productize speech-to-speech for language learning, and announce the first thing we've built here, Live Roleplays. Language learning is the perfect use case for speech-to-speech, as everyone is discovering. We've been blown away at how immersive our conversational practice experience now feels. But how does it differ from a general AI assistant like Advanced Voice Mode? We think it's more important than ever to create a product experience that's purpose-built for language learning by combining the best technology, product design, and pedagogy. This is what enables a real path to language fluency beyond the first 15 minutes of interaction. Here are some key aspects of how we've purpose-built this experience to be the most effective. 1. As a user progresses through the conversation, we use our proficiency graph to ensure the dialogue is at the right level and exposes helpful language they should learn next. 2. We give the user specific objectives to try and complete during the roleplay to drive the conversation forward and get them to use key language items. 3. And when they need extra help, we proactively surface just the right amount of a hint to help them. And of course, all of our lessons are driven by our proprietary learning engine, so these live roleplays, along with all of our lesson types, happen as part of a wider learning sequence personalized to the learner.
I'm definitely excited for the good version of what Speak is building, whether or not Speak is indeed building a good version, or whether OpenAI's new offerings are a key step towards that good version. We do need to lower the price a bit, as it is currently prohibitive for most uses. But if there is one thing AI is great at, it is lowering the price. I have to presume that they are not going to charge 10 to 20 times the cost of the text version for that long. Right now, GPT-4o Real-Time Preview is $5 or $20 for 1 million text tokens and $100 or $200 for 1 million audio tokens.
Timothy Lee, anyone have a theory for why OpenAI is charging so much more for audio than text on a per-token basis? I'd expect audio to be expensive if it was using many tokens per second, but I don't understand why it would be 10 to 20 times more expensive per token.
If you can take care of that, Sully is excited, as would be many others.
Sully, whoa, okay, the real-time API looks kinda insane. Low-key more exciting than O1. It can use real-time tools plus their voice-to-voice model, which is bonkers. I genuinely think this. 1. Opens up a new wave of never-before-possible voice startups, so much to build. 2. This might actually kill existing voice startups because while OAI is not competing with them, the tech moat is basically zero. I can build a voice AI agent wrapper in less than 1 day. Cost will go to zero. I really want to build some real-time voice apps now.
Nikshep Saravanan. It's awesome, but expensive, at 25 cents per minute of output. You can do 8 to 10 times cheaper and lower latency with Cartesia AI right now.
Sully, yeah, holy shit, I just saw.
Anant. The prohibitive cost is why I'm still considering 11 Labs for my current project. Can't have an alarm app cost $40 per month, but definitely something to revisit when it's cheaper, or if Google finally releases Duplex as an API, and that's reasonable to implement.
McKay Wrigley is always fun for the "this will change everything," and here you go.
McKay Wrigley. Real-time AI will change everything. Computers won't just be tools. They will be 200 IQ co-workers who will actively help you with any task, and you will have entire teams of them. OpenAI is building the nervous system for AGI, and it's available via API. Take advantage of it. I know I'm a broken record on this, but once again, who stands to benefit the most from this? People who can code. OpenAI drops a new API, and boom, Suddenly anyone who can use Cursor Plus read docs can build AI assistants with the latest tech. Even less than 10 hours gets you far. Learn.
The presentation also spent a bunch of time emphasizing progress on structured outputs and explaining how to use them properly, so you get useful JSONs. These quotes are from the chat at the end between Altman and Kevin Weil. Via Simon Willison's live blog, we also have notes from Greg Camrat, but those don't always differentiate who said what.
Kevin Weil. An enterprise said they wanted 60 days' notice in advance of when you're going to launch something. I want that too.
I don't think enterprises should be able to get 60 days' notice, but it would indeed be nice if OpenAI itself got 60 days' notice for various safety-related reasons.
Sam Altman. We have an approach of figure out where the capabilities are going, then work to make that system safe. O1 is our most capable model ever, but it's also our most aligned model ever.
Is that what the preparedness framework says to do? This makes the dangerous assumption that you can establish the capabilities and then fix the safety issues later in post. 1. If you're not considering safety from the beginning, you could paint yourself into a corner and have to backtrack. 2. If you're building up the capabilities without the safety, assuming you can fix safety later, then that's going to create every incentive to rush the safety efforts and push to release even if they're not ready or incomplete. 3. We already have examples of OpenAI rushing its safety work and testing. 4. If you build up sufficient capabilities, then the model being trained at all or evaluated internally could itself become unsafe, or someone might steal the model in this intermediate unsafe state. So, gulp?
Sam Altman. I think worrying about the sci-fi ways that this all goes wrong is also very important. We have people thinking about that.
We've gone so far backward that Sam Altman needs to reassure us that they at least have some people thinking about the ways this all goes wrong, while calling them sci-fi ways in order to delegitimize them. Remember when this was 20% of overall compute? Now it's we have people thinking about that. Also this.
Sam Altman. Iterative deployment is our best safety system we have.
Well, yes, I suppose it is, given that we don't have anything else, and OpenAI has no intention of trying hard to build anything else. So, iterative deployment, then, and the hope that when things go wrong, we are always still in charge and around sufficiently to fix it for next time. What are they going to do with the AGIs?
Mission. Build safe AGI. If the answer is a rack of GPUs, they'll do that. If the answer is research, they'll do that.
There must be some use of the word safe that I wasn't previously aware of, or it's expressing a hope of some kind, perhaps.
Kevin, I think 2025 is really going to be the year that agents goes big.
Sam Altman. I think people will ask an agent to do something for them that would have taken them a month, and it takes an hour, and then they'll have 10 of those at a time and then 1,000 at a time. And we'll look back and say that this is what a human is meant to be capable of.
I really do not think they have thought through the implications properly here.
Kevin, when is O1 going to support function calls? Kevin, before the end of the year. Applause. O1 is going to get system prompts, structured outputs and function calling by the end of the year.
Sam Altman. The model, O1, is going to get so much better so fast. Maybe this is the GPT-2 moment. We know how to get it to GPT-4. So plan for the model to get rapidly smarter.
I notice I am skeptical because of how I think about the term smarter. I think we can make it, maybe the word is cleverer. Have it use its smarts better. But already the key limitation is that it is not actually smarter, in my way of thinking, than GPT-4. Instead, it's finding ways to maximize the use of what smarts it does have.
Sam Altman. Sam asks if people who spend time with O1 feel like they're definitively smarter than that thing, and if they expect to feel that way about O2.
Yes, after using it for a bit, I will say I am definitively smarter than O1. Perhaps I am prompting it badly, but I have overall been disappointed in O1.
Sam Altman. We've been tempted to produce a really good on-device model, but that segment is actually pretty well served now.
Is this a way of saying they don't know how to do better than Gemini there? Singing is disabled for now, it seems, due to copyright issues. In other AI news, Dirk Kingma, part of the original founding team of OpenAI and more recently of Google DeepMind, joins Anthropic.
Dirk Kingma. Personal news. I'm joining Anthropic AI. Anthropic's approach to AI development resonates significantly with my own beliefs. Looking forward to contributing to Anthropic's mission of developing powerful AI systems responsibly. Can't wait to work with their talented team, including a number of great ex-colleagues from OpenAI and Google, and tackle the challenges ahead.
OpenAI is moving forward to raise $6.6 billion at a $157 billion valuation. That seems like a strangely small amount of money to be raising, both given their needs and given that valuation. Soon they will need far more. OpenAI has asked investors to avoid backing rival startups such as Anthropic and xAI.
Elon Musk. OpenAI is evil.
Quoted largely because I'm sad Musk couldn't find openly evil AI. This is all standard business practice. OpenAI has stopped pretending it is above all that. A list of the top 20 companies by generative AI patents in 2023 shows exactly why this is not a meaningful metric. OpenAI and Anthropic revenue breakdown. Huge if true, they think Anthropic is highly competitive on the API side, but alas, no one uses Claude.
Image. This chart compares the estimated annualized run rate revenue at the end of 2024 for OpenAI and Anthropic, broken down by API and chatbot subscription sources. It shows OpenAI with significantly higher projected revenue in both categories, totaling $5 billion, $1.4 billion from API and $3.6 billion from chatbot subscriptions, while Anthropic is estimated to generate $1 billion total, $850 million from API and $150 million from chatbot subscriptions.
They have OpenAI growing 285% year-over-year for subscriptions, 200% for API, whereas Anthropic is catching up with a 900% increase since last year. Whether that is sustained for the API will presumably depend on who has the better products going forward. For the consumer product, Claude is failing to break through to visibility, and it seems unrelated to product quality. The best part of chatbot subscriptions is the profit margins are nuts. Most people, myself included, are paying miles more per token for subscriptions than we would pay for the API. OpenAI got there early to capture the public imagination, and they've invested in voice mode and in responses people like and done a good job of that, and gotten good press for it all, such that ChatGPT is halfway to being the Google, Xerox, or Kleenex of generative AI. I wonder how much of that is a lasting moat versus being a choice of focus. Long term, I'd think this is bullish for Anthropic. That's huge year-over-year growth, and they're fully competitive on the API, despite being supposedly valued at only something like 20% of OpenAI, even taking into account all of OpenAI's, shall we say, issues. That seems too low. BioNTech and Google DeepMind build biological research assistant AIs, primarily focused on predicting experimental outcomes, presumably to choose the right experiments. For now, that's obviously great. The risk concerns are obvious too. The mask comes off.
Matthew Iglesias. OpenAI's creators hired Sam Altman, an extremely intelligent autonomous agent, to execute their vision of X-risk conscious AGI development for the benefit of all humanity, but it turned out to be impossible to control him or ensure he'd stay durably aligned to those goals.
Siegel Samuel writes at Vox that OpenAI as we knew it is dead, pointing out that this consolidation of absolute power in Altman's hands and abandonment of the non-profit mission involves stealing billions in value from a 501c3 and handing it to investors, and especially to Microsoft. OpenAI planning to convert to a for-profit B corporation is a transparent betrayal of the mission of the OpenAI nonprofit. It is a clear theft of resources, a clear break of the fiduciary duties of the new OpenAI board. If we lived in a nation of laws and contracts, we would do something about this. Alas, we mostly don't live in such a world, and every expectation is that OpenAI will get away with it. So this is presumably correct legal realist take on OpenAI becoming a B corporation.
John Arnold, I'm sure OpenAI has a bunch of lawyers signing off on this, and all but starting a nonprofit that metamorphoses into $10 billion seems, interesting.
There are rules that apply to the little people.
Greg Colborn. I run a charity. Pretty sure that I can't just turn it into a business and have the board give me 7% of the assets. That's flat out illegal here in the UK, and I'm pretty sure it is in the US too. Basically, it's just stealing charitable assets. If the charity were to be disbanded, the assets still have to be used for charitable purposes, e.g. donated to another charity. They can't just be taken into private hands. If this was legal, why wouldn't everyone use this scam to start a business as a charity first, to nefariously extract funds from honest charity givers?
Apple has withdrawn from the new funding round, and WSJ dropped this tidbit.
WSJ. Tom Dotan and Berber. Jin. OpenAI is also in the process of overhauling its corporate structure from a non-profit into a for-profit company. That change, which was encouraged by many of the investors in the round, will be a complicated process for the startup. If it doesn't complete the change within 2 years, investors in the current round will have the right to request their money back.
This means OpenAI is potentially in very deep trouble if they don't execute the switch to a B corporation. They're throwing their cap over the wall. If they fail, venture investment becomes venture debt with a conversion option. If the companies request their money back, which, conditional on this failure to secure the right to OpenAI's profits, seems not so unlikely, that could then be the end. So can they pull off the heist, or will they get a not-so-fast? To those asking why everyone doesn't go down this path, the path isn't easy.
WSJ. Theo Francis, Berber Jin, and Tom Dotan. To get there, it will have to deal with regulatory requirements in at least 2 states, determine how to award equity in the for-profit company, and split assets with the non-profit entity, which will continue to exist. This kind of transaction is incredibly complex and would involve a large number of legal and regulatory hurdles that would need to be navigated, said Karen Blackistone, general counsel at the investment firm Hanger Management, and an attorney specializing in technology and tax-exempt organizations.
One problem will be antitrust attention, since Microsoft had been relying on OpenAI's unique structure to fend off such complaints.
WSJ. Regulators have already scrutinized Microsoft's relationship with OpenAI and whether it effectively controls the startup. The tech giant has argued that its investment only entitles it to a share of potential profits, but a new structure under which Microsoft has an equity stake in OpenAI could invite further antitrust attention.
I think the antitrust concerns are bogus and stupid, but many people seem to care. The bigger question is, what happens to OpenAI's assets?
WSJ. The more complicated part is what would happen to OpenAI's assets. When such a conversion takes place, it can't simply shift assets from a non-profit to a for-profit. The non-profit is legally required to end up with assets, including any cash and securities, at least as valuable as those it turns over to the for-profit. In effect, OpenAI's operations would likely be sold to the for-profit company or its investors, with the charity retaining the proceeds.
That makes sense and matches my understanding. You can take things away from the 501c3 world, but you have to pay fair market price for them. In this circumstance, the fair value of what is being taken away seems like quite a lot. Gretchen Kruger, current AI policy researcher who was formerly at OpenAI, notes that her decision to join was partly due to the nonprofit governance and profit cap, whereas if they're removed now, it is at least as bad as never having had them. Carol Wainwright, formerly of OpenAI, points out that Altman has proven himself a danger to OpenAI's nonprofit mission that has now been entirely abandoned, that you cannot trust him or OpenAI, and that the actions of the past year were collectively a successful coup by Altman against those in his way rather than the other way around. Greg Brockman offers his appreciation to the departing Barrett, Bob, and Mira. Wojciech Zaremba, OpenAI co-founder still standing, offers his appreciation and his sadness about the departures. Everyone likes money. I like money. But does Sam Altman like money? On a different level, I like money. Joe Rogan argues that, yes, the guy very much likes money.
Joe Rogan. He's always kind of said, I'm not doing this for money. I don't make any money. They just busted him in a $4 million Koenigsegg. See if you can find that car. Oh, I don't need money. Me money? I'm not even interested in money. He's driving around in a $4 million Koenigsegg. Hi, busted. I think you like money.
This is certainly a fun argument. Is it a valid one, or does it only say that he, 1, already has a lot of money, and 2, likes nice things like a $4 million car? I think it's Bayesian evidence that the person likes money, but not the kind of super strong evidence Joe Rogan thinks this is. If you have 1,000 times as much money as I do, and this brings you joy, why wouldn't you go for it? He can certainly afford it. And I do want someone like Altman appreciating nice things and not to feel guilty about buying those things and enjoying himself. It is, however, a different cultural attitude than the one I'd prefer to be in charge of a company like OpenAI. I notice I would never want such a car. When I asked Claude what it indicates about someone driving such a model around town, without saying who the person in question was, it included that this was evidence of, among other things, status consciousness, attention-seeking and high-risk tolerance, which all seems right and concerning. It also speaks to the image he chooses to project on these questions. Intentionally projecting that image is not easily compatible with having the attitude Altman will need in his position leading OpenAI. Gwern, who predicted Mira's departure, offered further thoughts a few months ago on the proposition that OpenAI has been a dead or rotting organization walking for a while now and is rapidly losing its lead. One has to take into account the new O1 model in such assessments, but the part of this that resonates most is that the situation seems likely to be binary. Either OpenAI is still OpenAI and can use its superior position to maintain its lead and continue to attract talent and everything else it takes, or if OpenAI is no longer so special in the positive ways, it gets weighed down by all of its unique problems and continues to bleed its talent. Deepa Sitharaman writes at the WSJ that turning OpenAI into a real business is tearing it apart.
Deepa Sitharaman, WSJ. Some tensions are related to conflicts between OpenAI's original mission to develop AI for the public good and new initiatives to deploy money-making products. Others relate to chaos and infighting among executives worthy of a soap opera. Current and former employees say OpenAI has rushed product announcements and safety testing and lost its lead over rival AI developers. They say Altman has been largely detached from the day-to-day, a characterization the company disputes. As he has flown around the globe promoting AI and his plans to raise huge sums of money to build chips and data centers for AI to work, OpenAI has also been evolving into a more normal business, as Altman has described it since his return. The company, which has grown to 1,700 employees from 770 last November, this year appointed its first chief financial officer and chief product officer.
The majority of OpenAI employees have been hired since the Battle of the Board, and that would be true even if no one had left. That's an extreme level of growth. It is very difficult to retain a good culture doing that. One likely shift is from a research culture to a product-first culture.
Tim Shai, former OpenAI. It's hard to do both at the same time. Product-first culture is very different from research culture. You have to attract different kinds of talent. And maybe you're building a different kind of company.
Noam Brown disagrees and promises us that OpenAI still prioritizes research, in the wake of losing several senior researchers. I am sure there has been a substantial shift towards product focus. Of course, that does not preclude an increase in resources being poured into capabilities research. We do, however, know that OpenAI has starved their safety research efforts of resources and other support. So far, nothing that new, but I don't think we've heard about this before.
Deepa Sitharaman. Moradi and President Greg Brockman told Sutskever that the company was in disarray and might collapse without him. They visited his home, bringing him cards and letters from other employees urging him to return. Altman visited him as well and expressed regret that others at OpenAI hadn't found a solution. Sutskever indicated to his former OpenAI colleagues that he was seriously considering coming back. But soon after, Brockman called and said OpenAI was rescinding the offer for him to return.
This report does not mean that Murati and Brockman actually worried that the company would collapse. There are multiple ways to interpret this. But it does provide valuable color in multiple ways, including that OpenAI made and then rescinded an offer for Sutskever to return. It's also hard not to be concerned about the concrete details of the safety protocols around the release of GPT-4o.
Deepa Sitharaman. Executives wanted to debut 4o ahead of Google's annual developer conference and take attention from their bigger rival. The safety staffers worked 20-hour days and didn't have time to double-check their work. The initial results, based on incomplete data, indicated GPT-4o was safe enough to deploy. But after the model launched, people familiar with the project said a subsequent analysis found the model exceeded OpenAI's internal standards for persuasion, defined as the ability to create content that can persuade people to change their beliefs and engage in potentially dangerous or illegal behavior.
I believe that releasing GPT-4o does not, in practice and on reflection, exceed what my threshold would be for persuasion, or otherwise have any capabilities that would cause me not to release it. And I do think it was highly reasonable to not give 4o the full frontier model treatment given it wasn't pushing the frontier much. It still is rather damning that, in order to score a marketing win, it was rushed out the door after 20-hour days from the safety team, without giving the safety team the time they needed to follow their own protocols, or that the model turned out to violate their own protocols. I've seen at least one mocking response of, "So where's all the massive harm from 4o then?" And that is not the point. The point is that the safety process failed and was overridden by management under the flimsy pressure of, "We want to announce something before Google announces something." Why should we think that process will be followed later when it matters? Nor was this a one-time incident, it was a pattern.
Deepa Sitharaman. The rush to deploy GPT-4o was part of a pattern that affected technical leaders like Murati. The CTO repeatedly delayed the planned launches of products, including search and voice interaction, because she thought they weren't ready. Other senior staffers also were growing unhappy. John Schulman, another co-founder and top scientist, told colleagues he was frustrated over OpenAI's internal conflicts, disappointed in the failure to woo back Sutskever, and concerned about the diminishing importance of its original mission. In August, he left for Anthropic.
The article also heavily suggests that Brockman's leave of absence, rather than being motivated by family concerns, was because his management style was pissing off too many employees. The New York Times covers Altman's grand compute expansion dreams and his attempts to make them reality. His ambitions have scaled down to the hundreds of billions of dollars.
Kate Metz and Trip Mickle, NYT. TSMC's executives found the idea so absurd that they took to calling Mr. Altman a podcasting bro, one of these people said. Adding just a few more chip-making plants, much less 36, was incredibly risky because of the money involved.
The article is full of people laughing at the sheer audacity and scale of Altman's asks. But if no one is laughing at your requests, in an enterprise like this, you aren't asking for enough. What is clear is that Altman does not seem to care which companies and nations he partners with, or what the safety or security implications would be. All he wants is to get the job done. In Nate Silver's book, there is a footnote that Altman told Silver that self-improving AI is really scary and that OpenAI isn't pursuing it. This is a highly bizarre way to make a statement that contradicts OpenAI's clearly stated policies, which include using O1, aka Strawberry, to do AI research, and the direct pursuit of AGI and the entire goal of the former Super Alignment Team, RIP, being an AI alignment researcher. So this quote shows how much Altman is willing to mislead. The new head of alignment at OpenAI is Joshua Achiam. He's said some useful and interesting things on Twitter at times, but also some deeply troubling things, such as
Joshua Achiam, November 11, 2022, giving advice to EAs. Try to get better calibrated about what tail risks are real and what tail risks aren't. It seems like a huge miss to me that an enormous amount of ink gets spilled over speculative AGI tail risks, predicted by people who are clearly converting anxiety disorders into made-up numbers about the likelihood of everyone dying within 10 years. The probability of misaligned AGI doom by 2032 is less than 1 in a million %. P. Large-scale catastrophic accident risk from general-purpose AI by 2032, resulting, for example, in substantial cyber attack or, e.g., empowering bad human actors by helping them accomplish a significant bioterrorist operation with scale of impact smaller than COVID-19. Maybe 3%?
In other words, the new head of AI alignment at OpenAI is on record lecturing EAs that misalignment risk from AGI is not real. I do get the overall sense that Joshua is attempting to be helpful, but if the head of AI alignment at OpenAI does not believe in existential risk from AI misalignment at all, if he thinks that all of our efforts should be in fighting human misuse, then that is perhaps the worst possible sign. Effectively, OpenAI would be saying that they have no super-alignment team, that they are not making any attempt to avoid AI killing everyone, and they intend to proceed without it. The question then becomes, what do we intend to do about this? Quiet speculations? Perplexity for shopping?
Testing catalog news breaking. Perplexity to offer one-click purchase and free shipping on infinite products to Pro subscribers in the future. Will AI-assisted shopping kill the traditional purchasing experience? Previously discovered, Buy with PPLX turned out to be a part of a planned Pro offering to help users make purchases while searching. It will come along with a separate purchase tab to let users list and track their purchases as well.
Galabytes. If all Perplexity does is build a better search layer and a less broken website/mobile app, I will gladly give them 5% of each purchase, even if it still uses Amazon on the back end. AI curation and prompt interface equals perfect antidote to the horrid UI of Amazon.com and app.
I still often use both Google and Wikipedia, and was never using Bing in the first place, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. In some form or another, yes, of course, the future of shopping looks like some version of tell the AI what you want, and it locates the item or candidate items for you, and checks for the lowest available price and whether the deal is reasonable, and then you can one-click to purchase it without having to deal with the particular website. The question is, how good does this have to be before it is good enough to use? Before it is good enough to use as a default? Use without sanity checking, even for substantial purchases? When will it get that reliable and good? When that happens, who will be providing it to us? Dreaming Tulpa reports they've created smart glasses that automatically snap photos of people you see, identifies them, searches online and tells you tons of stuff about them, like phone number and home address, via streaming the camera video to Instagram. So on the one hand, all of this is incredibly useful, especially if it caches everything for future reference. I hate having to try and remember people's names and faces and having to be sure to exchange contact info and ask for basic information. Imagine if you didn't have to worry about that, and your glasses could tell you, oh right, it's that guy with the face, and even give you key info about them. Parties would be so much more fun, you'd know what to talk to people about, you could stop missing connections, and so on. Love it. Alas, there are then the privacy concerns. If you make all of this too smooth and too easy, it opens up some malicious and antisocial use cases as well. And those are exactly the types of cases that get the authorities involved to tell you no, despite all of this technically being public information. Most of all, it wigs people out. The good news, I think, is that there is not that much overlap in the Venn diagram between things you would want to know about people and things you would want to ensure other people do not know. It seems highly practical to design a product that is a win-win, that runs checks and doesn't share certain specific things like your exact address or your social security number. Mostly, though, the problem here is not even AI. The problem is that people are leaving their personal info exposed on the web. All the glasses are doing is removing the extra steps. The quest for sane regulations. Now that SB 1047 has been vetoed, but Newsom has said he wants us to try again with something more comprehensive. What should it be? As I explained on Tuesday, recommended if you haven't read it already, Newsom's suggested approach of use-based regulation is a recipe for industry strangulation without helping with risks that matter, an EU-style disaster. But now is the time to blue sky and think big, in case we can come up with something better, especially something that might answer Newsom's objections while also, possibly working and not wrecking things. Garrison Lovely makes it into the New York Times to discuss scandals at OpenAI and argue this supports the need for enhanced whistleblower protections. The case for such protection seems overwhelming to me, even if you don't believe in existential risk mitigation at all. The Week in Audio. Jack Clark offers the rogue state theory of AIs. From August, Peter Thiel talked to Joe Rogan about a wide variety of things, and I had the chance to listen to a lot more of it. His central early AI take here is bizarre. He thinks passing the Turing test is big, with his justification largely being due to how important we previously thought it was, which seems neither here nor there. We agree that current Turing-level AIs are roughly Internet big, roughly 8.0 on the technological Richter scale, in impact if things don't advance from here over the course of several decades. The weird part is where he then makes this more important than superintelligence, or thinks this proves superintelligence was an incorrect hypothesis. I don't understand the logic. Yes, the path to getting there is not what we expected, and it is possible things stop soon, but the progress so far doesn't make superintelligence either less likely to happen. And if superintelligence does happen, it will undoubtedly be the new and probably last most important event in the history of history, no matter whether that event proves good or bad for humans or our values, and regardless of how important AI had already been. Peter then takes us on a wild ride through many other topics and unique opinions. He's always fun and interesting to listen to, even, and perhaps especially, the parts where he seems utterly wrong. You've got everything from how and why they built the pyramids, to chimp political dynamics, to his suspicions about climate science, to extended takes on Jeffrey Epstein. It's refreshing to hear fresh and unique wrong takes, as opposed to standard dumb wrong takes, and especially not even wrong takes. That's all in addition to the section on racing with China on AI, which I covered earlier. Rhetorical innovation. Democratic control is nice, but have you experienced not dying? Or, if it turns out Petrov defied the will of the Soviet people, I'm cool with that.
Sigal Samuel. OpenAI is building tech that aims to totally change the world without asking if we consent. It's undemocratic. And Sam Altman just proved that bespoke corporate structures and voluntary commitments won't cut it. We need laws that give independent oversight.
Robin Hanson. All innovation changes the world without democratic consent.
Eliezer Yudkowsky. My problem with ASI is not that it will undemocratically kill everyone, but that it will kill everyone. Call me a wild-eyed libertarian, but I would consider that event to be almost exactly as bad if it happened as the result of a 51% vote of Earth's population.
Connor Leahy. I disagree. If we somehow fairly and verifiably gained informed voter consent and like 75% of people were like, fuck it, let it rip, I think this scenario would be vastly more ethical and dignified than the scenario we are in.
Davidad. The word informed is pulling a lot of weight here and seems contradicted by the phrasing, fuck it, let it rip. Surely it should sound more like, actually our safeguards seem pretty decent and it's not worth postponing all the medical/climate/empowerment miracles any longer.
Robin Hanson's point is valid, and one can go far further than that, in the sense that we all change the world every time we do anything or fail to do something. There will often be losers from our decisions, and obviously, we should still be free to do most things without permission from another. Innovation is not special. One must, however, be careful not to prove too much. Innovation does not mean you automatically need permission. It also does not mean you have or should have a free pass to change the world however you like. Robin and I would both draw the line to give permission to more things than America's status quo, and indeed I expect to oppose many AI regulations upon mundane AI, starting with much of the EU AI Act. Sorry, I haven't finished my summary there. The reason it's not done is it hurts my eyes to look, and I keep not forcing myself to finish it. I would still make an exception for things that would plausibly kill everyone, or otherwise plausibly have massive net negative externalities. I'm also strongly with Yudkowsky here, not Leahy. My problem with everyone dying undemocratically is mostly the dying part, not the undemocratic one. I'd feel better, I suppose, in some karmic justice sense that the people deserved it, if they offered actually informed consent. But none of us would end up less dead. Indeed, our founders knew this principle well. The Constitution is in large part designed to protect us from the majority doing various highly dumb things. Your periodic reminder. Better start believing in science fiction stories, dear reader. You're in one, regardless of how much additional AI progress we see.
David Mannheim, AI takeover and existential risks sound like science fiction, not real problems. Science fiction like AI that writes poetry and solves mathematical problems better than a significant majority of humans. Sorry, reality exists independent of the genre you think it belongs to.
Never mind 01. All the fictional characters in most of the science fiction I've read or seen over the years would be blown away by at least one of GPT-4, or what you can do with a smartphone without AI, often by both. You have all the world's knowledge at your fingertips right now. I could go on. In general, anyone who calls something science fiction should be considered to have invoked a variation of Godwin's law. Here's some fire from Robert Miles via AI not kill everyoneism memes. Video is at the link, and yes, this whole thing is unbelievably exhausting. It absolutely boggles my mind every time, no matter how many times I hear it. People really will say, with a straight face, that building AIs smarter and more capable than us is a default safe activity, and letting everyone use them for whatever they want will go fine and turn out well for the humans unless I can show exactly how that goes wrong. And each time it's like, seriously, WTF everyone, sure, I have 1,000 detailed arguments for things likely to go wrong, but why do I need to even bring them up?
Robert Miles, people are starting from a prior in which AIs are safe until you give me an airtight case for why they're dangerous. This framing is exhausting. You explain one of the 10,000 ways that AIs could be dangerous, then they explain why they don't think that specific thing would happen. Then you have to change tack, and then they say, your story keeps changing. If you're building an AGI, it's like building a Saturn V rocket, but with every human on it. It's a complex, difficult engineering task, and you're going to try and make it aligned, which means it's going to deliver people to the moon and home again. People ask, why assume they won't just land on the moon and return home safely? And I'm like, because you don't know what you're doing. If you try to send people to the moon and you don't know what you're doing, your astronauts will die. Unlike the telephone or electricity, where you can assume it's probably going to work out okay, I contend that ASI is more like the moon rocket. The moon is small compared with the rest of the sky, so you don't get to the moon by default. You hit some part of the sky that isn't the moon. So show me the plan by which you predict to specifically hit the moon. And then people say, how do you predict that AIs will want bad things? There's more bad things than good things. It's not actually a complicated argument. I'm not going to predict specifically where it off into random space your astronauts are going, but you're not going to hit the moon unless you have a really good, technically clear plan for how you do it. And if you ask these people for their plan, they don't have one. What's Jan LeCun's plan? I think that if you're building an enormously powerful technology and you have a lot of uncertainty about what's going to happen, this is bad. Like, this is default unsafe. If you've got something that's going to do enormously influential things in the world, and you don't know what enormously influential things it's going to do, this thing is unsafe until you can convince me that it's safe.
Host. That's a good way of thinking about it. With some technologies, you can assume that the default will be good or at least neutral, or that the capacity of a person to use this in a very bad way is bounded somehow. There's just only so many people you could electrocute one by one.
In related metaphor news, here is a thread by Eliezer Yudkowsky. Use your judgment on whether you need to read it. The rest of you can skip after the opening.
Eliezer Yudkowsky. The big issue in aligning superintelligence is that if you screw up enough, you cannot repair your mistake. The ASI will not let you repair it. I tried calling this the one-shot aspect of the problem. This word, one-shot, proved vulnerable to misrepresentation by motivated misunderstanders, or maybe grinning liars who said, but ASI is not one shot. We can do all sorts of experiments to make sure we understand. Oh, these poor fools who don't understand empiricism, who think they can analyze a superintelligence by pure theory. To design a space probe that will actually land on Mars without dying to some weird malfunction is a huge, difficult Murphy-cursed problem. Why? Because you can't fix the probe after it launches.
Okay, this is the point where a lot of you can skip ahead, but I'll copy the rest anyway to preserve it for easy reference and copying, 'cause it's good.
Eliezer Yudkowsky, you can run all kinds of ground experiments. They do. It's still cursed. Why is launching a space probe still Murphy-cursed with actual weird failures that destroy $327 million efforts, despite all the empirical advanced testing done on the ground? Because the ground experiments can't exactly reproduce the real outer space environment. Something changes. And then, once conditions have changed a little, something goes wrong. And once a probe is high up in space, far, far above you, it is too late for regrets, too late for tears. Your $327 million project on which you staked your whole scientific career is dead. You cannot repair it. We could call it, maybe, Murphy's curse of unretrievability, if we were cataloging the conditions that make an engineering project be cursed of Murphy. If you can't repair a thing past a certain time, this alone will make an easy engineering project into a very hard problem. The phrase one-shotness ought to have been shorter and covered it. But if you've got people running around, deliberately or motivatedly but deniably unconsciously, misrepresenting everything, they can do the real damage of making short, sensible phrases unusable. Murphy's curse of unretrievability is not defeated by doing earlier experiments that are not exactly like the critical context where things need to work. This is clearly true in practice. Ask GPT-4o about the costliest failed space probes. Still, let's talk about the theory. Let's say you have no understanding of physics and are trying to build a bridge. Can testing without theory save you? And one answer is, possibly if you can apply a genuinely matched testing regime that is more severe than the actual intended use. Edgy. Say you have no idea of the theory of bridge building. So you build a bridge, and then you order a cart pulled across that bridge with a rope. The cart is loaded down with rocks that weigh 10 times the most weight you expect the bridge to ever bear. Will this save you? Figuring out how this bridge testing method would need to work might be for some readers a helpful exercise in alignment mindset. So I invite readers to pause and consider this question before continuing. Absent theory, how must you verify a bridge by mere testing? I answer, loading a cart down with rocks and running it over the bridge once before use might still lead the bridge to fail and fall later. Maybe the mortar that you used degrades, or wooden beams rot, or the earth below settles. So every year again you need to use ropes to pull across that heavier cart, loaded with 10 times as much weight as the bridge ought to hold. Conditions change over time. When you first pulled the cart across, you were not testing exactly the conditions of use 10 years later. And how sure is your assumption about the weight the bridge will later bear? If you wanted to really be sure, you'd have to install a weighing station where heavy-looking carts are weighed against rocks that are 1/10 of the weight used to test the bridge. You would write down all these assumptions. There would be a sheet of parchment on which was written, I believe as a load-bearing assumption, if I post up a sign saying no carts over 1 ton lest the bridge fall, nobody will drive a cart more than 2 tons over the bridge. The parchment should also say, I believe as a load-bearing assumption, though conditions change over time, if I once per year test the bridge's ability to bear 20 tons of weight, the bridge will not, in just the next year, degrade past being able to hold 2 tons of weight. And once you write down an assumption like that and stop and reflect on it, you realize that maybe the bridge's operating instructions need to say, retest the bridge after a major flood or unprecedented set of storms. Don't just pick up and start using it again. None of this, of course, is going to save you if somebody marches troops across the bridge, and the rhythm of their marching feet is close to a resonant frequency of the bridge, Angers Bridge, 1850, 226 deaths. It takes theory to know to test something like that. To be clear, humanity has always picked itself up and trudged on, after bridge collapses that kill 226 people, a little wiser and having a better idea of what to test next time. A bridge collapsing doesn't wipe out the whole of humanity, so it's not worth that much worry. Also, TBC. This notion of write down all your assumptions on parchment so you can reflect on what might violate them is anachronistic for an era that knows no bridge physics. Even the Romans had a little physics of loads, but not parchment lists of load-bearing assumptions. Likewise today. If we look at the people building artificial superintelligence, they have no physics to tell them if a bridge will stay up. And they have no written lists of load-bearing assumptions. And their grand testing plan is to run smaller carts across the bridge first. To summarize, unretrievability, more fully, Murphy's curse of unretrievability, is what makes it very hard to build space probes. I tried calling this property one-shotness, but people motivatedly misinterpreted it to say, it's not one shot, we can run tests first. The reason why running ground tests doesn't make space probes not be Murphy-cursed, i.e. building space probes is still a big, huge deal, and even then often fails in practice, is that conditions on the ground experiments are not exactly like conditions in space. We can understand a bit about how hard it is to exactly match conditions by looking at the example of what it would take to make a bridge stay up by pure testing, absent any theory. This would also go better with written lists of load-bearing assumptions. But even written lists still won't save you from learning a hard lesson about resonance the first time that soldiers march across a bridge. The would-be builders of gods don't even have written lists of load-bearing assumptions and what might violate them.
John Pressman. I'm no longer allowed to signal my epistemic fairness with public likes, so I would like to inform you this is a good thread.
Galabytes. Yeah, it's an interesting fact about the world that neural net training almost has a reverse Murphy curse. It's definitely not anti-fragile, but it's quite robust. In fact, this is a defining characteristic of good neural net architecture choices.
John Pressman. It is, but I think the Murphy curse he's worried about here is more like the second-order effects of the continuous learning dynamics than the neural net training itself. There's a lot of opportunity for things to go wrong once the model is in a feedback loop with its training set.
My understanding of capabilities training is that there are a lot of knobs and fiddly bits and characteristics of your data, and if you screw them up, then the thing doesn't work right, but you can tinker with them until you get them right and fix the issues. And if you have the experience and intuition, you can do a huge YOLO run where you guess at all of them and have a decent chance of that part working out. The contrast is with the alignment part, with regard to the level you need for things smarter or more capable than people, exact thresholds unclear, hard to predict and debatable, which I believe is most definitely cursed, and where one must hit a narrow target. For mundane or prosaic alignment, the kludges we use now are mostly fine, but if you tried to fly to the moon with them, you're very out of your test distribution. You were only kind of approximating even within the test, and I can assure you that you are not landing on that moon. Rune offers wise words in an unrelated thread. I fully endorse.
Rune. A true accelerationist feels their heart beat faster when they stare into the fog of war. The stomach lurch from the vertigo of science fiction. The courage of someone changing their whole life knowing it could go sideways. Anyone else is a LARPing idiot. People who are wearing blindfolds accelerating into walls dissociated from the real world, in an amphetamine haze with nothing precious to gain or lose, are shuffling zombies that have given up their soul to the great replicator. There is no guarantee of victory, no hands left unbloodied, only the light cone of possibilities.
An example of what this failure mode looks like in a response to Rune.
Anton. Faster, faster, until the thrill of speed overcomes the fear of death.
Remember who Marc Andreessen is. There is a school of thought that anything opposed to them is 1984-level totalitarian. Marc Andreessen, and to a lesser extent Paul Graham, provide us with a fully clean examples this week of how his rhetorical world works and what it means when they say words. So I wanted to note them for future reference so I don't have to keep doing it over and over again going forward, at least with Mark in particular.
Paul Graham. Degrowthers should lead by example. Don't tell us how you think we should live.
Live that way yourselves and show us how much better it is.
Eliezer Yudkowsky, degrowth sucks, but unilaterally stop engaging in this widespread act that you say has selfish benefits but larger negative externalities is not a valid gotcha. There should be a law to make us all cooperate in the prisoner's dilemma, but I won't while you won't is valid.
Mark Andreessen, the totalitarian mindset. No personal choice, just top-down control of everything, forever.
Did someone point out that you first is not a valid argument or gotcha against requiring a personal sacrifice that some claim would do good? While also opposing the obligatory and also deeply true degrowth sucks, the sacrifice by pointing out it is stupid and would not in fact do good. Well, that must mean the people pointing that out are totalitarians, favoring no personal choice, just top-down control of everything, forever. So the next time people of that ilk call someone a totalitarian, or say that someone opposes personal choice, or otherwise haul out their slogans, remember what they mean when they say this. The charitable interpretation is that they define totalitarian as one who does not, in principle and in every case, oppose the idea of requiring people to do things not in that person's self-interest. Here is another example from this week of the same enemies list attitude, and attributing to them absurdist things that have nothing to do with their actual arguments or positions, except to lash out at anyone with a different position or who cares about the quality of arguments.
Mark Andreessen, there will be no curiosity, no enjoyment, but always there will be the intoxication of power. Always there will be the sensation of trampling on an enemy who is helpless. If you want a picture of the future, imagine Helen Toner's boots stamping on a human face. Forever.
I don't think he actually believes the things he is saying. I don't know if that's worse. As a bonus, here's who Martin Casado is and what he cares about.
Martin Casado. Had to mass unmute/unblock a bunch of EA folks just to enjoy their lamentations for a day.
Rune. Seems in really poor taste.
Martin Casado. You're a bigger person than I am, Rune. After months of largely baseless vilification and hit pieces, I'm enjoying the moment. Don't you worry. I'll block them all again in a day or so.
A narrow path. A narrow path is a newly written plan for allowing humanity to survive the path to superintelligence. Like the plan or hate the plan, this at least is indeed a plan that tries to lay out a path that might work. The core thesis is, if we build superintelligence before we are ready, then we die. So make sure no one builds it until then. I do agree that this much is clear. Until such time as we figure out how to handle superintelligence in multiple senses, building superintelligence would probably be collective suicide. We are a very long way from figuring out how to handle it.
Andrea Miotti, we chart a path of 3 phases. 0. Safety, build up our defenses to restrict the development of superintelligent AI. 1. Stability, build a stable international AI governance framework. 2. Flourishing, with a stable system and humanity secure, build transformative AI technology. We propose a normative guiding principle, no superintelligence. Most AI is a beneficial tool for human growth. Superintelligence is a successor species. We should understand the latter as a hyper-capable adversary to contain and build our defenses against.
If we build things that are plausibly AGIs, that directly creates a lot of mundane issues we can deal with, and not so mundane intermediate issues that would be difficult to deal with. If that's all it did, which is how many think about it, then you gotta do it. The problem is, what we definitely cannot deal with is that once we build AGI, the world would rapidly build ASI, one way or another. That's what they realize we need to avoid doing for a while. You backchain from there. Here is their plan. At whatever level of detail you prefer to focus on. Do you think it is sufficient? Do you think it is necessary? Can you think of a superior alternative that would do the job?
Andrea Miotti, to achieve safety, we identify certain conditions to be met. 1. No AIs improving AIs. 2. No AIs capable of breaking out of their environment. 3. No unbounded AIs. 4. Limit the general intelligence of AI systems so that they cannot reach superhuman level at general tasks. Any restriction on the general intelligence of AIs will be broken if machines can improve themselves or other machines at machine speed. We draw a principled line to focus only on dangerous illegible AIs while leaving untouched human-written software.
This is a tough ask even if you want it. It's a gray area. Are Claude and O1 AIs that can improve AIs? Not in the automated super scary way, but a software engineer with current AI is a lot more productive than one without it. What do you do when humans use AI code assistant tools? When they copy-paste AI code outputs? At what point does more of that change to something different? Can you actually stop it? How? Similarly, they say no AIs capable of breaking out of their environment, but for a sufficiently unprotected environment. Current AIs already are on the verge of being able to do this, and many will set them free on purpose anyway. Similarly, when interacting with the world and being given tools, what AI can we be confident will stay bounded? They suggest this can happen with safety justifications. It's going to be tough. Finally, there is a limit to the general intelligence of systems, which again you would need to somehow define, measure, and enforce. This is a long, dense document, roughly 80 pages. Even if we did get society and government to buy in, there are tons of practical obstacles ahead on many levels. We're talking about some very difficult to pin down, define, or enforce provisions. This is very far from a model bill. Everything here would need a lot of iteration and vetting and debate, and there are various details I suspect are laid out poorly. And then you'd need to deal with the game theory and international aspects of the issue. But it is a great exercise. Instead of asking, what can we in practice hope to get done right now? They instead ask a different question, where do we need to go? And then, what would it take to do something that would actually get there? You can, of course, disagree with how they answer those questions, but they are the right question to ask. Then, if the answer comes back, anything that might work to get us a place we can afford to go is going to be highly not fun. As it well might. How highly not fun? Do you care more about it not working, or things being not fun? Is there an alternative path or destination to consider? No doubt many who read, realistically glance at, or lightly skim or feed into an LLM, this proposal will respond along the lines of, look at these horrible people who want to restrict X or require a license for Y, or they want a global government or war on math or whatnot, and then treat that as that. It would be good to resist that response. Instead, treat this not as a call to implement anything. Rather, treat this as a claim that if we did X, Y, Z, then that is plausibly sufficient, and that no one has a less onerous plan that is plausibly sufficient. And until we can find a better approach, we should ask what might cut us off from being able to implement that plan, versus what would enable us to choose, if necessary, to walk that path if events show it is needed. One should respond on that level. Debate the logic of the path. Either argue it is insufficient, or it is unnecessary, or that it flat out won't work, or is not well defined, or suggest improvements. Point out differing assumptions and cruxes, including doing that conditional on various possible world features. This can include, we won't get ASI anyway, or here are less painful measures that are plausibly sufficient, or here's why there was never a problem in the first place. Creating things smarter than ourselves is going to go great by default. And they include many good objections about detailed choices, implementations, definitions, and so on, which I haven't dug into in depth. There are a lot of assumptions and choices here that one can and should question, and requirements that can be emphasized. Ultimately, if your actual point of view is something like, I believe that building ASI would almost certainly go fine, because of reasons, then you can say that and stop there. Or you can say, I believe building ASI now is fine, but let's presume that we've decided for whatever reason that this is wrong, and then argue about what alternative paths might prevent ASI from being built soon. The key is, you must pick one of these. 1. Building a superintelligence under current conditions will turn out fine. 2. No one will build a superintelligence under anything like current conditions. 3. We must prevent at almost all costs anyone building superintelligence soon. Thus, be clear which of these you are endorsing. If it's number 1, fine. If it's number 2, fine. If you think it's too early to know if number 1 or number 2 is true, then you want to keep your options open. If you know you won't be able to bite either of those first 2 bullets, then it's time to figure out the path to victory and talk methods and price. And we should do what is necessary now to gather more information and ensure we have the option to walk down such paths. That is very different from saying we should write this agenda into law right now. Everyone involved understands that this would be over-determinedly premature. Aligning a smarter-than-human intelligence is difficult. A fun feature of interpretability is that the model needs to be smart enough that you can understand it, but not so smart that you stop understanding it again. Or, similarly, that the model needs to be smart enough to be able to get a useful answer out of a human-style chain of thought, without being smart enough to no longer get a useful answer out of a human-style chain of thought, and definitely without it being smart enough that it's better off figuring out the answer, and then backfilling in a chain of thought to satisfy the humans giving the feedback, a classic alignment failure mode.
Image. This graph shows the percentage chance of various AI models giving the same answer with and without chain of thought, COT, reasoning across different model sizes. The chart illustrates that for most models, the likelihood of producing consistent answers with and without COT decreases as model size increases, with a notable dip around 10 billion parameters before rising again for some models at larger sizes.
Wojciech Zaremba. O1 paradigm of solving problems with a chain of thought offers new avenues to safety/alignment research. It's easier to ensure such AI behaves as expected because we can see its thoughts. I am feeling pumped.
Davidad. Remember, folks, the more capable the base model, beyond about 13B to 34B, the less the reasoning trace serves as an effective interpretability tool for the true causes of the final answer. Unless the final answer is produced only via running formal methods on the reasoning.
Rune, you cannot conclude that native reasoning tokens exhibit similar behaviors to prompted COTs.
Davidad. Yeah, you're right. Q is even worse. It doesn't just hallucinate a plausible answer and then back-rationalize it. It specifically hallucinates a successful answer and then back-rationalizes it.
Rune, you're changing the subject. Your COT faithfulness scaling law may not hold.
Davidad. Look, here's an a priori argument. If an architecture has enough model capacity to distill the COT search process into its layers, it will achieve higher reward for its final answers by separating its reasoning process from the noise introduced by sampling during the QOT rollout. There may be ways to avoid this by doing not just process supervision, but also some kind of per-step entropic regularization. But if you just say, oh, it's native reasoning, it's different, I think you just mean process supervision, and I think you haven't understood the problem, and I think your model may still do its true reasoning purely in latent space, in parallel with COT steps to satisfy the PRM. If the agent is interacting with a process supervisor that is truly impossible to fool, like a proof assistant, this may be okay, because there's no corner of strategy space which gets highly rewarded for confident wrong answers. But even then, you still shouldn't expect the formal proof to mirror the actual underlying reasoning. Mathematicians often reason almost entirely through geometric intuition while writing down an entirely algebraic proof, even if their motivation is to write down correct algebra.
I think Davidad is correct here. The wit and wisdom of Sam Altman. Always remember to reverse any advice you hear, including the advice to reverse any advice you hear.
Sam Altman. You should have a very high bar for doing anything but thinking about what to work on. Of course, that doesn't work all of the time. At some point, you actually have to go execute. But I often see people who I think are really talented, work super hard, and are super product, not spend any time thinking about what they're going to work on. If I have a very hard problem, or I'm a little confused about something, I still have not found anything better to do than sit down and make myself write it out. It is a super powerful thinking tool.
My experience is that almost no one gets this correct. People usually do one of one, do something reasonably random without thinking about what to do. 2. Do a ton of thinking about what to do, stay paralyzed, and do nothing. 3. Do a ton of thinking about what to do, realize they are paralyzed or out of time and money, and end up doing something reasonably random instead. 4. Do a ton of thinking, buy some abstract argument, and do something unwise. 5. Overthink it, and do something unwise. The good news is, even your System 1 instinctive guess on whether you are doing too little or too much thinking versus doing is almost certainly correct. And yes, I do hope everyone sees the irony of Altman telling everyone to take more time to think harder about whether they're working on the right project. The lighter side. The perfect sub-tweet doesn't exist.
Sasha DeMarigny, head of Anthropic Comms. Happy to report that Anthropic's co-founders all still merrily work at the company. None have been lost to middle-age plagues or jacuzzis.
See the section the mask comes off, and this in particular if you don't have the proper context.
This has been an episode of the Don't Worry About the Vase podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please visit thezv.substack.com to support the author. If you enjoy having AI-narrated episodes, please note this is a listener-supported podcast. To receive new posts and support the cost of creation, consider becoming a subscriber at dwatvpodcast.substack.com. Thanks for listening.